Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone feeling? I know we're kind of almost towards the end of the session, so everyone might be feeling a little bit tired. But thank you for joining us on this session, Beyond Algorithms Applying Generative AI to Transform Insurance. We are honored to have three distinguished leaders from the field with us today. Ian, General Manager and CEO of APAC, PIC3. Alvin, Director of Global InsurTech Strategy and Solutions at PingAN. Today, they'll share insights on how generative AI is transforming the insurance sector from operations to customer personalization and discuss future opportunities in this space. So to begin, I would like to invite each of you to briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your role in the organization.
I guess I'll start. I actually began before PIC3. We were named ZA Tech Global, and I began in the parent company in ZA Tech International, based out of Hong Kong, as a strategy director. And then I helped start a couple entities, including ZA Bank and ZA Insure in Hong Kong. But then the software company, ZA Tech Global. So aside on this side, what I do is essentially help start and run the customer success department, and then and then shift it over to commercial to optimize and build that out. And then now I just run the P&L for the Asia business lines. But yeah, we cover InsurTech in terms of enabling insurance companies, providing software to enable insurance companies to go digital, whether it's embedded or transformation of their existing operations. And then we also provide software to major platforms to embed insurance into them. So Grab, Lazada, Cloak, Caro, these platforms are using our software to get insurance into their ecosystem to embed and do all sorts of things.
My name is Alvin. I joined PingAN as part of the CEO office for Jessica, our previous co-CEO, in charge of a lot of the health ecosystem strategic projects. After joining One Connect, I am now part of the team where we're trying to identify solutions that are proven to be successful for PingAN, and then standardizing it and making it available for our global partners to leverage. So that's sort of my gist of it.
So I think to give a little bit of context to the audience as well on how Gen AI can be applied to a day-to-day basis outside of insurance, I want to ask everyone on the panel today, if Gen AI could help you to solve one daily task or personal challenge outside of work, what would you want it to do? Maybe Ian can go first.
I actually use Gen AI quite actively these days in my personal life. Just recently, we had the elections in the U.S. For the president and the houses, the House and the Senate. And so I used it quite frequently to check in on real-time information from various news sources of what was happening in the elections in real time. So different news sources, and just asking it to summarize based on what's happening, what's going on, and then even like deep diving into what each politician, especially in the House and the Senate, as they were winning the seats and so on, what were their kind of basic positions on technology, crypto, or the economy, or immigration, that sort of thing. So it could feed me that information very easily and in summary.
Alvin?
Yeah, I like to use it for brainstorming. So as a sort of starting place, if I have a question in general, I can pitch it into the Gen AI and ask them, give me a starting point to start my research on. Another way I really like to use it is to draft first drafts for emails.
I use that too all the time.
That's also my go-to.
Yeah.
So for me, what Gen AI does best is actually taking a lot of unstructured informations and making it very structured. So one thing that I find very helpful for my personal life is trying to organize my daily schedules, my weekly schedules. Yeah. So for example, you don't want to miss your birthday, your wife's birthday, right? So you can actually ask them to organize your schedule in that way. Yeah.
For those that miss their partner's birthday, you need to use Gen AI for your daily life. For me, it's really simple. I'm planning a trip at the end of the year, and I just asked ChatGPT to come up with an itinerary for me. So you kind of like have a starting point as to what to do. I think the whole idea of this question is to let the audience know that Gen AI is not that scary, and it's like something that you use on like a day-to-day basis without even you knowing it. And like by applying and using it, it honestly helps with a lot of the efficiencies that could be kind of like improved. So thank you all for sharing. I think going back to our panel's main topic and to start proper, a lot of the audience might be afraid to kind of hear the term like Gen AI and what they are when they think of like leveraging technology in general. So just as a quick question for all the panelists here, how does AI or Gen AI fit into your company's like overall vision?
I can start. Our company at Peak 3 had the benefit of observing our parent company that use Gen AI in insurance operations. So ZhongAn in China currently already employs Gen AI, especially in the customer servicing space. And so we've seen operational improvements and enhancements here and there. And then we also learned how, because we're in a space where different Gen AI solutions are not quite clear, are distinct winners. So 1 month, GPT may release a new version, and the most recent one 4.0, and then Gemini or Google might release another one of Gemini. Maybe Alvin Cloud releases another one that's going to be extremely competitive. And so it's very clear that that we are not sure that what will be the winning solution, especially for particular narrow use cases that you might see in insurance. And so what ZhongAn learned in China was to build a platform that is very open architecture that could plug into core insurance transactions and activities, and then link that with various AI solutions in different use cases and contexts. So we copied that architecture and that design and laid that over our technology. So in our vision, we believe we can be the foundation in terms of our microservices core tech, plug directly into, that has a middle layer platform that could plug into various AI agents that will answer certain problem spaces in the insurance industry. And then we can use that to directly interact with insurance core. So we believe both in our own R&D and other parties doing R&D in Gen AI, with us as the foundation to kind of bring that at scale in operation and real insurance activities.
Thank you.
So I can share some experience based on PingAN and how we view Gen AI. And to be completely transparent, it's still an exploration process, I think. For a lot of business or even business units, we're all testing and finding new ways to bring out the potential of Gen AI. For PingAN, we have been one of the forerunner when it comes to AI investment, trying to find a vertical use case, a business use for AI in general for automated. So historically, that has been discriminative AI, more rules-based. Now with the Gen AI capability, it's opened up a whole nother box of possibilities. How do we mix and match the two solutions to bring out the most effectiveness for our workforce or for the process management? I think that's something that we are actively exploring.
Interesting. I think, Alvin, a question to you. With PingAN being a leading insurance and financial services provider, how are you using Gen AI to streamline operations and improve customer service? So I think Kendrick mentioned earlier about the two main things, and one of them was customer service. What is PingAN doing as well in the space?
So customer service is definitely a big part. It's where you can actually improve the customer experience directly, whether it's a voice-based navigation tool. So when you call the hotline, you no longer have to put in a number to figure out where you want to go to. Everything is dialogue-based. There can also be on the background. So every call center agent, after they picked up your phone call, they actually have to write a quick summary report. We can use Gen AI to speed that out process by taking the text from your dialogue and automatically creating a report. And so really improve that operation efficiency. But we can really think about Gen AI throughout the whole process of operation. So not just customer service. So early in, even when during recruiting, we can use AI for candidate screening, give them candidate scores for attractiveness or fit to your recruitment profile. On training end, you can also use Gen AI to create a digital avatar with a very specific angle of preference as well as interest, and then so that you can have your agents practice pitching to this avatar in a very natural language version. And then during sales, of course, you very easy. You Gen AI to generate posters, personalized message with sort of compliance approved message or content. So there's many different ways, I think, to really look in and dig into Gen AI and see how it could really impact our business or operation or even customer experience, most importantly.
Thank you. And Ian, representing Peak 3, a technology-focused companies, what unique advantages do you bring to the table in applying Gen AI to the insurance industry?
Yeah, so similar to actually leading off where I was just describing our vision, what we have done is we've set because our basic technology, our starting technology, is built on kind of modern architecture. So it's microservices, it's upgradable, and it's upgradable by components, and it has various functions that can be integrated. Because it's microservices, that means it has APIs exposed into every individual function. And so what we can do is very easily, like I said, create that middle layer where it allows various AI solutions to plug in and then operate real insurance activities across that value chain. And so what we've done, and we have our own R&D, for example, where we have built out first notice of loss, so people could submit claims in and talking through a classic Gen AI interface where you're chatting with it, and you can submit any type of claim. So you have an incident, it can be a motor claim, it could be an injury claim. And then what our system would do, because it is a proper insurance core, it'll query the insurance core, who first, after verifying who you are, it would, in that dialogue, confirm the materials that you've submitted, identify the type of claim you're submitting for, then query all the different applicable policies and benefits within those policies that would work with the incident, and then do the calculations of the benefits that you qualify for. And then if there are things or elements missing, it can go have an open dialogue with you that you're missing some elements in that to complete a submission. So that's first notice of loss. Then that directly, because it's plugged into the core, will create a claim reserve. And then that claim reserve is then sitting there, and then the claim transaction would then go through the back end. It can be automated. So 80% of that can be automated. But even then, so if it's a medical claim, we have a medical claim fraud, waste, and abuse, so FWA partner that it runs off Gen AI. That particular partner, so our platform can plug in external partners because it is also open API, open architecture. So we can plug in an external partner that has their own Gen AI solution to query, oh, is this claim supposed to be automated? And then so in a situation, this particular partner basically built their Gen AI such that it operates like a junior claims assessor. So in this sense, they have proven in their own proof of concepts and their own type of experiments that they can remove and automate 80% of activities that normal claims teams would process. And so in that brings another level of automation that a human would have had to operate in a normal claims environment, right? That classic rule sets would have solved before, only solved automated 80%, yet 20% left. And apparently this particular fraud, waste, and abuse Gen AI solution could solve another kind of 80% of the missing 10. So that only leaves 2% left that would be definitely escalated to senior claim staff. So in our experience, so again, kind of walking back, what we offer in terms of our solution is this kind of open architecture. We do our own R&D. We create Gen AI solutions to solve different parts of the value chain, but we're also open architecture such that we plug in external solutions quite easily. And so we have a whole host of Gen AI solutions that are external to ours, whether it's OCR, fraud detection, whether it's adversarial type, anti-adversarial types of partners, fraud, waste, and abuse partners, or even payout partners and that sort of thing. So we have like all sorts of solutions that we're willing and open to partner with.
So I think the rest of the panelists, feel free to jump in at any point of time.
Yeah, in China, Zhong'an also had done something similar, although it's not like co-pilot with a human sales staff, but then it's actually a fully Gen AI outbound call. So there's a Gen AI voice that is calling out to customers because they either missed their payment for renewal, and so they're at risk of of lapsing, right? And so then there's an automated outbound call that would call out to the end customer. Oh, by the way, your policy is about to lapse if you don't pay within the next 14 days, blah, blah, blah. And then of course, like the human, the customer that responds may have like various like kind of like frustrations in the conversation, let's say, like, oh, I made a payment, why didn't it go through? Then of course, like, but what's interesting is the Gen AI could read all that information in real time, check where the payment may have been or missed or failed or so on and so forth, and then reply, and then also have that sentiment detection as part of that Gen AI interaction, right? And then because they're also not human, they don't have to deal with the stress of handling a very difficult customer. And so what was very interesting from the stories and the recordings that I had heard that was coming from our China team was that it can be quite frustrating to deal with, but because it is Gen AI, they can stay neutral. They can react to that sentiment and try to calm them down. Whereas like a real human customer service staff may start seeing the deviations from the classic script in those type of scenarios just because of the difficulty of that scenario. So ironically, in these kind of very emotional aspects, it's easier to use Gen AI to kind of handle that type of solution, and it might decrease stress in your customer service stuff.
So instead of two parties getting stressed, now it's only one.
Yeah, exactly.
And to kind of build on that, and just really to stress that we should let our imagination go wild when it comes to Gen AI. So just building on what Ian just said, we do have AI technology that can detect emotion on the call, whether you're angry, you're depressed. And then we can build in rules where the AI robot can actually adjust their response based on your emotion. Mm-hmm. So if we detect that your customer, the human, is challenging the robot with a very distressed type of tone, your robot can add a sort of response up before the payment reminder. It's like with an empathetic message. So I understand your trouble. I know it's tough on you, but you still need to pay the loan.
But you'll lapse.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where if you do let your imagination go wild, there's a lot of things that is actually possible because now the technology is there to enable us to realize these possibilities. And bringing back to the call center, I can also add some other use case example. So other than just having an AI to remind you to bring up the right information in real time based on your conversation with your customer, we can also build in a real-time quality assurance module. So if the call agent on the telesales are over-promising on a product, they can actually detect that, raise a red flag, and remind the call agent to correct themselves on the spot so that you don't let that become a potential risk for complaint down the road in the future. And another use case where you can take the same technology. In the past, when it comes to call center quality assurance, it's usually a team of quality experts who sample different recording. And then based on that sample, you grade it out, you check for misuses. With a robot, you can actually check all recordings. And then only have a human get involved when there is a red flag involved. Mm-hmm. So the operation cost, the accuracy, the service quality, everything is actually boosted just because we have this available to us.
And Alvin, how does PingAN leverage its experience in AI-driven operations to integrate Gen AI into personalized insurance solutions tailored to individual customers?
I think a lot of it is coming from the customer experience. So for example, when we do buy a health insurance, a lot of times you do have a sort of a health declaration survey. So basically ask you, do you have these diseases? Because if you do, you'll get rejected by underwriting. But that's actually, in the view of PingAN, that's a lost opportunity because not everyone, you can't decide everyone's health risk just by these very simple questions. So what we've determined is we leverage Gen AI technology as well as our wide range, or we have a very systematic way of organizing health data. We have a different database to drive a lot of treatment as well as this disease connection. So what we were able to do is we connect this database with a smart survey. So even though if you do respond that you have a certain at-risk disease, we will ask you some follow-up questions that will either qualify you for a to buy the health insurance maybe at a higher premium, giving you a better chance of getting coverage rather than just saying a 0-1 sum game that you just flat out reject you. So that type of scenario really helps with the client and also allows underwriting a lot more flexibility as well. Because then when they design the product, they could have more data to go against, as well as a much better way to estimate the risk that might come along with it.
Thank you. I see Ian nodding your head. Is there anything you want to add to what Alvin mentioned?
Yeah. I think there's always there's a wealth of opportunity in that exact topic. I think if you so we've designed something similar but not exactly the same. So what we've done is and it's still being developed, but we're running our own internal proof of concepts around a Gen AI that can analyze claims experience. And then by analyzing claims experience and how we process the claim, so for example, all claims workflows start with some automated rules up front, and then some trigger would obviously trigger a manual review that's not automated. But then if it turns out that in your manual review, your let's say you have like 99 percentile to approving a certain scenario, and in another scenario, it's 99% reject. So then it'll be a claim strategy recommendation from the Gen AI to kind of recommend at every retro review, hey, in the last 3 months, your claims processors auto-approve this, or approve this most of the time, almost 99% of the time, and the other case, they rejected it. So here are some recommended rules adjustments to your claims automation. And then a senior claims assessor can decide whether or not to employ that rule. You can also do the same thing in terms of product design and in underwriting. You could take the exact same concept. In one side, you could take all the application rejections in the underwriting, and then flag that to your product people and just ask the question, is there an opportunity to design a new product in the spaces that were rejected outright? So that's one starting point. The second starting point to what he was talking about was premium loading for the ones that have certain diseases that may occur more frequently due to some underwriting questions. And then there's certain, like if you can explore your claims experience, you may even just employ an exclusionary clause. So like for someone that has diabetes of a certain severity due to a handful of biometrics, then you could just exclude certain types of diabetes claims. And then in this way, you can still sell them the insurance, but just doesn't cover this particular space. Yeah. But then going back to the first opportunity, is like, well, if we're excluding diabetes, maybe we can sell like a diabetes critical illness of a certain type to cover a certain space in that risk that's worthwhile to pay a little bit more for, which is actually what Zhong'an did, is they discovered that those that with diabetes, they're not being covered. That's still a huge population of China. So can we cover them somehow? And then they created a CI product on complications associated with diabetes. So that's like amputations and so on. That's due to some severe event and due to advanced diabetes. But yeah, anyways, certainly Gen AI has a lot of opportunities to kind of solve for these type of problem spaces.
Thank you. And I think we're running a little bit out of time. So I'm going to start with Kendrick because you're based in Thailand and it's something related here. So I'd like each of you to share your perspective on the final question. Like given your diverse experiences and unique challenges, especially for all three of you that works with multiple global insurance ecosystems right around the region, what do you perceive as the most promising opportunities for leveraging Gen AI within the Thai insurance market? Hello, Alvin?
Yeah, I agree that at least in the short term, it's still going to be AI assist. It won't be a complete AI replacement. I also want to sort of draw attention that I think we can't see AI as one model as a solution for all. It's usually you have one that maybe a Gen AI as a master, but you have different discriminative AI for very specific jobs because that's the only way that we can ensure accuracy. Because part of the inaccuracy risk, as in the finance or insurance industry, this is still highly valued. We got to make sure that we're right. The information we give to our customers are accurate. And how do we do that is we layer the different responsibility of different models and AIs. I also do want to sort of pre-warning. I think there is going to be a second wave of AI explosion. The reason is a lot of times when it comes to developing a model, the bottleneck has always been data.
Yeah.
The model is only as good as the data you feed it. And usually the more data, the better. But I think with generative AI technology right now, there are a lot of people are actively exploring how do you train a model with less data. Because of the LLM model, the big models, Gen AI, this has become a reality. This is possible. Something that took a year of data to train could now potentially be done within 2 months. And so that could give us a second wave of acceleration down the road.
Yeah, I think Prem from Easy Digital, I'm not sure if he's still here. He mentioned earlier in his panel, garbage in, garbage out. It's only as good as what you actually feed. So I think that's kind of one of the things that people could be a bit wary of as well.
Yeah, so I think what is still not entirely explored are opportunities where, as Kendrick mentioned, where there's a lot of unstructured material that requires a lot of human handling today to take action on. So this was apparently poignant to me when I was speaking to a CRO, a regional CRO, and she was saying that like she has four staff, but then she has to coordinate at the regional level, and she has to coordinate with 8 different countries. And because she's chief risk officer, she has to manage like, how do I assess the compliance of all these countries? And each compliance organization in each country has written their policies in their own language. And so I have a lot of like stupid work in terms of having to go through all those documents, check in their various different languages and different interpretations of the policy language. How did they test that or enforce that policy or that process and so on? And then in respect of that, design a test case to examine if that organization, that country was operating compliantly against those particular policies. And so my team is supposed to police this, but then they spend a lot of time kind of just sifting through paperwork and then translating that paperwork and doing. So there's a lot of these kind of what she would call like stupid work and done by stupid people to do to police like all this the 8 countries is very, very kind of daunting when you really think about it. And then she gets hit if like someone goes out of policy. And so I think there's this kind of like unstructured space that can be easily solved by Gen AI, but you kind of have to figure out how do I take my Gen AI tool and then work the non-structured stuff that is in my organization. I think this interface is still not clear, which is why it's not solved today. But then I do think once that gets solved, there would be a lot of kind of interesting hurdles and of kind of stupid, so-called stupid people doing stupid jobs.
I gotta like start. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We are over time, but if you guys would like to chat more with these 3 amazing speakers here, let's give a hand for Kendrick, Alvin, and Ian once again. And thank you so much for having us.